It's a fun house in here, man. I've got everything kind of linked up. I find this thing, the Roland SEO2, to be my kind of master clock, as it were, where all the kind of tempo is coming from. So when I set this off, it's playing a bass line on the sequencer that it has on board, which I can also tweak, but then it's also setting off the sequencer on the Prophet 6. Now this is the Prophet now, plugged into an expression pedal down by my feet. And so if I put them both together, then I have like free hands to kind of, it's like having a kind of, it's like having a rhythmic guitar player, you know, just kind of playing on by itself, and I've still got my hands free to do other things. So, I mean, it could start anywhere, to be honest. I find that if I have all my keyboards plugged in all the time, that tends to kind of yield the best results. So that any sound you're thinking of is kind of only a click away. You know, if I'm writing at the piano, like I find if I'm writing songs, compositionally, it often starts at the piano with a chord progression or a melody. But then again, if I'm thinking about a specific sound, like on Cassini, for example, I knew I wanted really big pads at the end, so I put into the sequencer on the Prophet these pads. So this is just a sequence that I kind of put in the Prophet, which originally I wrote at the piano. But then I put it on the Prophet, and the cool thing about the Prophet is you can load it into the sequencer, and then I can mess with the modulation wheel and get a bit of a, and again it's like, you know, trying to find ways of creating a band without doing very much, you know. It's like set it off, turn up the modulation wheel, and you know, and then you have something to interact with somewhere else, you know. So I write from anywhere, really. I mean, again, you know, the sounds on these keyboards are very specific and very, they kind of have their own sort of nuance, you know. This is a Juno 106. It's my very first analog synthesizer that I'm so in love with. So it's got that really nice warm wobble to it that you can't really, it's quite hard to find elsewhere. The LFO, you can kind of get a bit carried away with it. There's a song on the new album Cables entitled Singularity, where I found this kind of bass line that was only specific to this keyboard. You can kind of get quite a sort of digital, sort of computer game kind of sound going on. Having different keyboards will send you down different roads for sure. Likewise with the Mellotron, you know, I mean, there's such unique sound. This is the digital version, but these are the strings. that track, U-Bahn. Actually played it on a real mellotron in the studio, but that sound, that kind of wobbly string sound, was ended up being the kind of bed for the song, you know. There's absolutely no question that there is a big learning curve with all of these things, you know, and I do find I spend more time than I should reading manuals than I do practicing the piano, you know. I'm trying to get more into using MIDI at the moment, so I've got everything MIDI'd up, so everything is connected via MIDI, basically. So as I say, if I start that, then everything else starts, and it allows me to, you know, create a band without a band. This little bad boy down here, it's called MIDI Solutions, and so that goes from here, this being the master clock, the SEO2 from Roland. These things are incredible, man. They're so portable and they sound amazing. This has got 3 oscillators on it and a sequencer. So when I set that off, it's sending a signal to this in here and then sending out 4 outs. So I'm now sending MIDI to my Chaos pad, I'm sending MIDI to the Prophet, I'm sending MIDI to this Korg mini log, and I'm sending it to this incredible Moog 1. So whenever I set that off, everything is saying I'm at 120 BPM as it is at the moment. So if you have any sequencer going, everything kicks off, and then you can kind of fade them as you need. The cool thing about the mini log was first, I mean, how good it sounds versus its portability. They sent me one a couple of years ago now, and I started touring with it. I also love the arpeggiator on it, which was originally one of the inspirations for Aftersun. So you can set that off, and then it's got a great filter on it. But it's basically a very versatile keyboard considering how small and lightweight it is. Yeah, I mean, it's a super powerful piece of kit. It's the $1 million question, man. I mean, if I could bring all this stuff on the road all the time, you know, that's definitely the kind of the end of the rainbow situation. But 9 times out of 10, you know, especially if you're flying to places, you can backline a lot of this stuff, but you know, portability is a huge thing, which is where the Roland Boutique range really kind of nail it. Because I take that on the road with me because it fits perfectly in a small bag, as I do this beautiful piece of kit here called a VP03, which is basically a very mini and portable vocoder. So this thing I'm also completely in love with. So I MIDI this to my master keyboard, which in this case is the Prophet, and if I turn the volume down on the Prophet, 1, 2, 3, then I get this vocoder coming through the VP03, and I can just adjust the levels, and then I can also, it allows me to manipulate the modulation and pitch wheel on this keyboard because it's MIDI'd up. So 1, 2, 3, and also modulation. So I'm just increasing the modulation there. 1, 2, 3. And so what can be nice is I can, using my Korg Chaos pad, I did I pre-recorded this loop earlier, but it's like I'm on Blue Peter or something. Yeah. Here's one I made earlier. So that's a loop there, and then I can jam with it, you know. Everything is coming, ultimately, when I play live, everything comes into this mixer. So I have control of all the levels right in front of me, and then the mixer is sending everything to the Chaos pad, so it allows me to kind of loop any element of this at any time. This one, I mean, I'm used generally just to kind of generate like more organic sounds that I may come back to replicate with real ones later. So at the moment, I've just got it playing real strings, which is just from the Contact library. So you know, if I'm looking for it just allows it to feel more real in the room, you know, so that we can kind of, I mean, that's what I'm doing at the moment in the studio, is using this as a template to kind of reference where the strings will be later, and then when we come to overdub stage, I will replace what I've done on the keyboard with a real string orchestra. This I can't get enough of, to be honest. This is an MXR carbon copy delay pedal, and I have it running underneath the piano lid at the moment. It's going into the largest sound hole on the piano and coming back in and into my mixing deck. It's a nice way of kind of making the piano feel more eerie, I suppose, and more kind of swimmy. It is absolutely awesome. It's terrifying as well, because it's like a lifetime's work just trying to understand its capacity. I've saved some patches here.
Okay.
So atmospheric. This demonstrates you've got. So basically, before, when we had with Moog a little fatty, you know, and you had just a kind of monophonic synthesizer, and so you only had one kind of is monophonic, one layer. Bassline on Swag Times is a little fatty, and that's very much just a monophonic synth, just kind of hitting home with the cutoff probably rolled up all the way up. This thing is in terms of its capacity, is a whole different ball game. It's a polyphonic synthesizer that has 3 layers of 3 oscillators each. So each layer can have 3 oscillators, and you've got 3 layers. So essentially, you've got 9 potential layers just straight off the bat, and it's just so powerful. So you've also got this XY manipulation here that. It's a beast. And then the mod wheel. It's hard to do it just, you know, if you hear this on headphones, it's like the level of detail to the sound that you're listening to. I mean, in terms of sound design and like film music, this thing is like, this is capable of all these keyboards combined, to be honest. Also the kind of the more percussive sounds. So that was a Fender Rhodes underneath here, just a standard Fender Rhodes I've had serviced, which has got a really nice light action, so it's kind of easy to play. And so also in terms of the kind of level of expression you can get, all these different parameters can be sort of automated. Also, you can get the degree of expression you can get from aftertouch. So, you know, just holding down the note and then pushing down the note further, you get that wobble, right? So, like. It's frightening. It also has a sequencer on it and an arpeggiator, which you can set off. pulling down the cutoff. And then it's also got onboard effects that you can customize. So that's just the dry signal. MIDI effect. Really nice reverbs. Incorporate everything at once. See how I do.